This is a summary of Carl Jung's The Undiscovered Self. Chapter 6. Self-Knowledge. Only through understanding and examining self-knowledge is it possible to explore the unconscious. Religious experience may derive from the unconscious, for they overwhelm and drive individuals to absolute conviction. Now more than ever are we beginning to see a melting pot of different creeds claiming to know absolute truth. Multitudes of different cultures of people possessing different ideologies are continually in contact and conflict with each other. This would cause people to embrace the new ideas or to stick towards their traditional ways. Hence, more than ever, we depend on our consciences and moral reasoning in order to overcome the various dichotomies of feeling and reasoning, change in tradition, capitalism and communism. One needs only to look at history for an example of our own shadow, from various conflicts between European realms to slavery, colonization and conquest. It is important to realize our capacity for evil, since if we had performed a certain evil in the past, it is more than likely to happen again in the future. We have a natural inclining for doing evil as self-evident by our imaginations, and often project it unconsciously into the actions of others. Projection carries the fee for our own evil in that of the other. Jung believes that it is important to recognize the shadow, for it is part of our human nature, and ignoring it would only cause us to be ignorant of ourselves. The recognition of capacity for good and evil in the human person is what Jung called psychological dualism. It is much easier for us to blame evil on others, criminals, or on the devil than it is for ourselves. Also, it is somewhat true to blame evil on something other than ourselves, because we are victims of our dispositions and proclivities, a product of nature. With the invention of atomic weaponry, man has become more effective in expressing the will for violence, though the will to hurt others has always existed. Reason alone does not suffice, because our unconscious nature is still with us, carried over while our moral reasoning has lagged behind. It is lucky that we are busy looking at evil in the eye of others, culminating in the fear of mutually assured destruction, for if not, MAD actually might happen. If only we studied more of the unconscious, this will allow us to know how certain things in history play out, whether it be looking at the weak spots of our enemies or understanding mass movements. The individual knows that he is merely a simple unit, or a pawn in some giant political game. Politics are played and rhetoric is used, which makes us see the evils in the other side through projection, but never our own evils. It is from there that the shadow broods. Moral complacency has paved the way for evil to seep further into our world. What is needed to build self-knowledge is self-criticism, to have an inner eye into one's own faults and evil acts. Jung believed it to be funny that self-criticism exists in Marxist ideology, though it is only to breed ideological subordination and not in improving our relationships with our fellow man. The masses don't care about individual flourishing and mutual understanding, but more about isolation and control. The lack of questioning inner motives happens in democracies too, creating further isolation. That's why it is important to be self-critical and to ask questions like, who is making the idealistic demands? And who is morally responsible to carry out the decisions? One must question motives and ideals, since ideals often don't translate well into actuality and deeds. Recognition of the shadow is important in order to find and change our own imperfections, because being necessary to recognize the considerations for a healthy, flourishing relationship with others. Relationships aren't based on strength, perfection, and absolute confidence, but in reality, they are based on weakness, helplessness, and on lacking something, as well as needing support. The perfect has no need of a relationship, while the weak does. Free society needs to look into our own faults and to develop caritas, Christian love for neighbor. Where love stops, power begins, and violence and terror. Idealism and public insight are not as valuable compared to recognizing one's own faults and developing self-reflection and criticism. Chapter 7. The meaning of self-knowledge. Through self-knowledge, one becomes aware of their instincts, archaic drives, and motivations, their potentiality and their ability for constructivism or catastrophe. There's little in the way of writing a list of rules full of don'ts and musts, since individuals should aim at improving their own moral reasoning ability, which can help them in their own decisions. Plus, many individuals just ignore this and end up doing the exact opposite or bring about catastrophe. Instead, it is much easier to change ourselves. Individuals who have insight into their own actions have found this passage into the unconscious and know exactly why they are doing what they are doing. It is hoped that improving self-knowledge would reflect into the unconscious zeitgeist. An example of this is modern art, which aims at reversing the once cherished notions of what was considered beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. Art allows us in turn to look into ourselves, our own chaotic unconscious psyche. The fulfillment of the pursuit of happiness, meaningfulness, and contentment could all be found, or rather can be found, only for the individual and not the state. It is the job of the psychiatrist to reflect as an individual, to voice their opinions on this matter for the welfare of the soul, and the Christian message and God who aims and champions the likes of the individual. Thanks for watching.